Hello, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde, and welcome to another French GCSE and iGCSE video tutorial. So, in this particular tutorial, we're going to look at the French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam, and I'm going to share some general tips for how to prepare during your preparation time, how to maximize the efficiency of your revision as well ahead of the exam day. And how to prepare as best as you can for the speaking exam. Right. So, firstly, my name's Dhananjay Talwar, and I studied French and Italian for my MA at the University of Cambridge. I graduated back in 2015, and I've been an educator since that time, mainly as a full time tutor. I've learned more than 20 languages myself to different levels, at least nine of those to fluency. So, it's something that I'm obviously very passionate about. I love to enthuse and motivate my students and help them to reach the grades that they are ultimately capable of getting. And so far, I have done this with over 500 students, helping them to achieve or exceed their target grade in French GCSE or iGCSE as a tutor. I have taught other languages too, about eight of them so far for GCSE and iGCSE, and some at higher levels too. Okay, so this is just an overview of the French GCSE and iGCSE exam boards. So you can see as of July 2025, the four exam boards for GCSE French and two for iGCSE French. The material in this video will be relevant, of course, for students of all of these exam boards, because today we're looking at the speaking exam overall. And I'm giving some general tips for how you can prepare as a student for the speaking exam, regardless of whether you're doing foundation or higher tier, and regardless of what your particular exam board is. So stay tuned as we go into those tips. Okay, so this is just to recap. So these are the different parts of the French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam, or the different possible parts of the French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam. The exact format will, of course, vary depending on your exam board. So not all exam boards will have all of these different elements of the speaking exam. That will change according to your exam board. So do make sure to consult your teachers and the website of your particular exam board to make sure that you have the most accurate information possible for how your particular speaking exam is going to be. Because you may not need to prepare all of these elements. The possible elements include role play, reading aloud task, photo card, and topic based conversation. Um, yeah. Of course, the reading aloud task, for example, is only there for AQA and Pearson at Excel GCSE for the new exams as of 2026. Certain elements will only be there for certain exam boards. So there is variation. I would try and check that as early as possible so that you don't waste time preparing potentially even elements of the speaking exam that you don't even need for your particular speaking test. And of course, I very much recommend checking out the other videos that I've created, which go into each of these different elements of the speaking exam in more depth, one by one. So if you want a more detailed breakdown, which should be very useful, then have a look at those other videos. In this video, though, we're looking at the French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam overall. Now, the speaking exam is generally definitely the first part of the French GCSE and iGCSE exams. Typically, it takes place even 3 or 4 weeks before the rest of the written papers for reading, listening, and writing. And for that reason, as well as perhaps other factors, it actually tends to be, from my considerable experience, the most nerve-wracking part of French GCSE or iGCSE exams for many students. That is because, of course, it's the first exam, but also I believe the feeling of being on the spot can be off-putting for many students too. And for that reason, it's often worth spending a bit more time revising just to make sure that you're comfortable and feeling as confident as you can be going into the actual exam. Um, And yeah, that you feel prepared, you know exactly what is going to come up as much as you possibly can and when. Um, yeah, and that you can, and so that you can settle those nerves as well. If the speaking exam, because the speaking exam is for most students definitely going to be the first part of their French GCSE or iGCSE. If that goes well, then of course a student will naturally feel more confident about the remaining papers or more relaxed about them too. So it's worth spending a bit of extra time revising for the speaking exam, in my opinion. Students will get 10 to 15 minutes of preparation time. The exact duration depends on your particular exam board. So do have a look at your exam board's website to check exactly how it's going to work for you. That preparation time is actually very important. And that is the first of my top tips about the French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam. So try to make full use of the preparation time. I'll take you through very shortly exactly what I would do in the preparation time. The preparation time I'm referring to is very much the time that you get just before you step into the actual speaking test. So you'd have 10 to 15 minutes to prepare. You'd have all of the cards, the candidate cards, with you at that time. So for the role play, reading aloud task, if there is one, photo card, if there is one as well. The topic based conversation is essentially the only part that you cannot predict at all necessarily. Um, and using that preparation time as efficiently as possible is really important. Of course, you'll be sitting in a separate room, usually with an invigilator, uh, and you won't be able to look up any vocabulary. You won't be able to rehearse out loud either. So if you're doing a reading aloud task during your preparation time, you won't be able to practice saying that out loud. I believe you would get an extra minute to do so if you want to before you go into the actual speaking test, though. But yeah, there are various ways to maximize the benefit of that preparation time, and doing so can make a big difference to a student's grade. Another key tip is memorizing key phrases. So, this is something that has been really beneficial, really useful for many of my students, and something that I hugely recommend to all of you. Yeah, find a list of key phrases. I've got one as well. I've made several resources for French GCSE and iGCSE and other languages. And take a bit of time. It can just be a few days before your actual speaking test to revise and memorize these key phrases. And once you've done that, you should be able to reel them off in the speaking exam. And because these are typically more advanced phrases associated with higher grades or even top grades, they look impressive to the examiners. So typically, these phrases could include subjunctive phrases, phrases which have subjunctive forms, if or see clauses. There are various different types of those. Um, Perhaps different ways to express your opinion, different conjunctions, and so on. Slightly more advanced phrases in terms of grammar that can wow the examiner. And I do go into more detail on some of these parts of French grammar in other videos too. Make sure that you also learn topic specific vocabulary. It can be tempting for students to avoid learning vocabulary for certain topics and simply to bet on some topics turning up in the exam. It's very dangerous to do that, though, because ultimately that is something you cannot predict. So I would learn vocabulary for all of the topic areas for your particular exam board. And again, the website of your exam board is a great place to check which topic areas there are for your exam board. There are many resources out there for learning vocabulary. Again, I've created very useful resources for this. But Quizlet, for example, is a very good one with many decks for French GCSE and iGCSE. There are plenty of others, though, too. And try and remember, lastly, that the examiner is on your side. I've included this because students will often get very scared, understandably and expectedly as well. And they may feel, particularly when they're nervous, that the examiner is out to get them, or that the examiner is simply looking for excuses to reduce their marks, which is not the case. The examiner should be on your side, and usually they will try and help you as much as they can. Some of the ways they'll do this include using gestures. So, as a student, make sure to pay attention to what the examiner is indicating with their hands, because they may well indicate whether they want you to provide more information or to stop talking, or potentially other details as well through their gestures. They're allowed to do that within reason, and yeah, they usually do. So that's something to watch out for. The examiner in general is on your side, of course. They want you to do as well as possible and to get the best grade you can. So try and remember that, that can calm students down somewhat as well. If you haven't used certain tenses over the course of your speaking exam, such as during the topic-based conversations, the examiner will try and prompt you to use those tenses too by asking questions, say, about the past or about the future, depending on which tenses they want you to use. So try and again pay attention to that and listen out to that for that as well. You can, of course, ask the examiner to clarify if you really haven't understood something. You can ask them to repeat in French, obviously. Try not to do so too many times. You could do so a few times over the course of the exam without being penalized, most likely. But if you go beyond that, then you do risk potentially losing marks. Okay. Further tips for the French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam. Of course, you've got to be very clear on what the examiner is asking for every question, and make sure that your answer is relevant to the question too, as well. Make sure that you speak in French, not in English. I've included this because there are many students, who might be tempted to switch to English when they're flustered and when they don't understand something in the speaking test. And of course, you can ask for clarification or you can ask the examiner to repeat, but make sure, please, that you do so in French. It is a French speaking exam, so you're not supposed to use English at all. Make sure you understand the differences between each part of the French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam. Of course, have a look at my other videos that I've done for more detailed overviews or breakdowns of each of the other parts of the speaking exam. It's important to understand the differences so you can prepare as well as possible, and practice using past paper materials too. So try and tailor your preparation, make it as accurate as possible as to what you're going to come across on the day of your exam. Try and use materials for your particular exam board, for instance, as well. Okay, so this is an indication of what I would do during my preparation time. So if I was a student, if I had 10 minutes of preparation time roughly, then this is what I would do. I would start off by reading over the instructions carefully for all of the tasks that I had to do. And I would have candidate cards for all of those, except for the topic-based conversation, which incidentally everyone has to do. So I would take a bit of time, firstly, to read over all of those candidate cards and make sure that I've understood the instructions for each of them thoroughly. The candidate cards could include the role play, a reading aloud task, and photo card, depending, of course, on my particular exam board. So that would depend on the exam board and the format for that particular exam. So you may have, any combination of these potentially. So make sure that you understand all of the information on each candidate card first. Then I'd go on to preparing what to say for each and every part of each of those candidate cards, for the role play, the reading aloud task, and potentially photo card. So I would think through exactly what I would be required to say when, and try and mentally think through exactly what I would say in French for every part that I'm required to produce. Of course, not everything is given on the candidate cards. There can be unseen parts of the exam as well, such as follow-up questions which you cannot necessarily predict. And for those, I would simply try and anticipate what might come up in those unseen parts. So based on the content that I do know is going to come up, what might I anticipate coming up as the unseen questions, for example, as parts of the role play or reading aloud task or photo card, which are not actually written on the candidate cards themselves. Of course, you're a bit more limited in how you can prepare for those elements, but I'd take a little bit of time, assuming that you've prepared thoroughly for everything else. and that you do have the time within your allotted preparation time of 10 to 15 minutes to do so, I would try and spend a bit of time trying to anticipate what could come up and possibly preparing answers for that too. Although that's not going to be the main focus of this preparation time. Make notes on a separate piece of paper. That is really important. This does vary depending on your exam board. So the procedure is different for different exam boards. And that's why you also need to check how it's going to work for your particular exam board on the day. But if you can, and if you're allowed to, then definitely do make notes on a separate piece of paper. You're allowed to bring these into the exam with you, and they can really, really help. There are some sort of restrictions on what you can write down on the separate piece of paper, but it can still be really helpful to have answers written down, even in bullet point form, on a different piece of paper, and to be able to refer to those as you go through the different parts of the speaking exam too. And lastly, but not least, try and take some deep breaths and calm yourself down before entering the exam room. That's what I would do just towards the end of the preparation time, perhaps for 30 seconds up to a minute maximum. And to me, that is quite important because, as discussed, the speaking exam itself can be very nerve-wracking. So try and make sure that you're feeling calm. And yeah, even take a bit of time to do a few deep breaths, visualization techniques, whatever it is that works best for you, just before you step into the actual room for the speaking exam. Okay, now let's move on to revision time. So that's what we were previously looking at was, of course, your 10 to 15 minutes of preparation time just before you go into the actual speaking exam. And now we're talking more about revision in general. So what can you do in the weeks and months building up to your French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam to maximize how prepared you are? So first of all, I would start early. As a tutor, we come across many students panicking because they don't feel prepared and they've left it to the last minute. So try and avoid that as much as possible. Of course, it is to some extent inevitable. You will feel more stressed the closer you get to the time, but try and start early to avoid those last minute nerves as much as you can. And similarly, put together a revision plan. So as soon as you can, try and note down all of the elements you need to revise, how long it will take to revise each one, and put together a realistic and flexible revision plan as well that you could actually realistically implement. That will really, really help. And that will guide your revision considerably too. I do have many resources available as well to help you to put together revision plans too. Make sure you understand the differences between each part of the French GCSE and iGCSE exam. I've done separate videos for each of these, and it is really vital to understand how you need to approach every part of the French GCSE and iGCSE papers, because each of them are different. And make sure that you revise each and every topic area too. So make sure that you haven't left anything out. It can be tempting to avoid certain topic areas. Certain topic areas, I believe, are definitely harder than others for most students, but try and revise them all as thoroughly as you can. And you'll be thankful on the day of the exam because you'll feel less stressed as a result. Okay, so now just a quick quiz to test your knowledge of the speaking exam overall. So the first question is, how can you prepare for the role play or reading aloud task or photo card during your preparation time? I'll give you a bit of time to think through this before I show you the answer. Okay, so I'll just reveal the answer now. So you can read through all of the instructions on the candidate cards and, of course, plan exactly what you're going to say and when. Try and plan this as precisely as possible. There will be unseen elements too, so you could try and anticipate what may come up there and how you're going to answer that, potentially. Obviously, that is less predictable and harder to prepare for. So many candidates, given the limited preparation time as well, are likely to stick to what I've written down here. Okay, question 2. So true or false? You only need to revise the topic areas that you think are going to come up in your speaking exam. I'll give a bit of time to think through this. Okay, here's the answer. So this is false. Of course, you must revise all the topic areas for your exam board, and that's because you cannot predict exactly which ones are going to come up in your French GCSE and iGCSE speaking exam, and it is risky, dangerous to try and do so. So I would revise everything. Have a look at all of the topic areas for your exact exam board, and try and prepare some grammar topic specific vocabulary across all of those. Okay, question 3, which is also true or false. The preparation time before you go into your speaking exam is always between 15 and 20 minutes. So I'll give a little bit of time to think over this again. Okay, now I'm going to show you the answer. This is also false. The preparation time will be between 10 and 15 minutes. The exact duration does vary. So do check exactly how it's going to work for your exam board. You can check with your teachers too, and on the exam board's website. Make sure that you have the most accurate information possible, so that you're not going in unprepared in any way. Okay, and lastly, question 4: what can you do to prepare for the unseen or unpredictable elements of the speaking test? So have a think through the answer. Okay, I'm going to reveal this answer now too. Okay, so the answer for the last question is these are obviously much harder to prepare for. You can try to anticipate common questions that may come up, particularly based on what you know is definitely going to come up. You may be able to anticipate common follow up questions or standard follow up questions, and how you might answer these or respond to them in the exam. But these are naturally much harder to prepare for, and I would not spend as long focusing on these unseen or unpredictable elements of the speaking exam when you're preparing in that 10 to 15 minutes of preparation time. Okay, so if you have any questions at all, or if you'd like to know about more personalized help, which I do offer as well, then you can get in touch through email or via Facebook or Instagram. I do post every single day on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, sharing my love of languages with the world, but also offering many tips for GCSE and iGCSE preparation for French and other languages, how to put together a revision plan, how to maximize your grade. So do check out the content there. I have many resources available, including free resources for French GCSE and iGCSE and other languages, and a Facebook group for students of French GCSE and iGCSE and their parents. And I do one-to-one classes, group classes, and courses, as well as other material as well. So if you'd like to know about any of that, don't hesitate to get in touch.